Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Red Reads. I am your host, Mystery Red, and this is a trigger warning. This story covers material that may be upsetting to some viewers and readers. This is a disclaimer. This beta reading content is at the author's request. This video is for learning purposes. Today we're looking at a memoir. I am doing some work for No-Ant-5039, and we are looking at what I believe they said was going to be the last letter in the memoir. So, she's got a note for me. We're going to just start right there and get right into it. I've got a playlist for Ant that if you want to follow along the other reads that I have done for them, you can go on the playlist and find all of them there. Hi, Mystery Red. I'm going to drop a few comments to start with to look out for. Starting sentences with and or but. This has come up before, and I noticed it's a bit heavy throughout this piece, but it conversationally matches my voice. Can you see where you notice them if you think it fits and adds personalization impact, or where you think it can be dropped? I think you'll see what I mean as you notice their placement. I worry there is too much you, yourself, you'll, but don't really see how to avoid it. Okay. As I'm reading, how can I describe what it is that my brain picks up and flags me for when sometimes I don't even know, and I stop and like I even have arguments with myself internally before it even comes out of my mouth, where I'm like, I'm going to keep reading. I don't think that needs to be addressed, or I'm going to keep reading. We'll see if it pops up again. And then if it pops up again, I'm like, oh, okay. Did it read out loud? Okay. And then I might let it go again. And then if it pops up like a third time, I'm like, oh gosh, I should have been mentioning it this whole entire time. I don't know. So, I try to find balance. I don't want to do too much. I don't want to do not enough, but, I guess if any of these, that little alert will go off in my head. I can't, we'll see what happens. Let me just read and we'll just see what happens, and I'll kind of keep an eye out for that. I'm going to try actually not to keep an eye out for it, because if it isn't noticeable, then it's probably okay. And if it is noticeable, we're going to know. We're going to know. And probably the same way with and but. So I get writing how we speak, which is what I always tell people, to write how you speak. But at the same time, we also want our writing to keep our reader as close as possible and not be a distraction. And maybe sometimes when we speak, we have habits that we aren't aware of until we're trying to write the way we speak, and we're like, oh wow, what do I sound like? What do I sound like? I have the thing where I'm doing these videos, and I don't want to have long lulls of me not speaking. It's kind of like being on radio and you're expected to speak the entire time and never stop. And then you don't want to do the and just make noises and just be really awkward. And unfortunately, since I don't edit the videos and I want them to be raw, I have to brace myself, because there's going to be some of that, because it's a live, as if you're in the room with me reading experience. I'm not reading ahead. I don't have a script. And so it is going to be a raw, basically raw experience. So here we go. To the girl in the black teddy, I see you standing there, wondering if anyone else notices you too. Shifting your weight to your left leg, you fidget with the hemline of your sweatshirt. Your gaze sizes up the crowd, conflicted between wanting to be seen and wishing to disappear. In a cycle of self-consciousness, judging yourself against your perception of others, you imagine what they must think of you, caught in a torturous, self-consumed critique. The narrative evolved over the years, but the message remained the same. You're not enough. Lose weight, hydrate skin, say something funny, heal my awkward anxiety. You'd nitpick. Maybe if you were perfect, then you'd be worthy. But perfection is an illusion, and life is messy. Somewhere along the way, you surrendered your destination for fear of failing to reach it. Then you found yourself lost. The only thing worse than being lost was being bored. There, in between the occupied moments, loneliness crept in. Saturday mid-morning, a rerun of Law & Order SVU would play on the laptop. closed blinds shut out the sun. With a bottle of whiskey atop the cluttered dresser, you didn't even have to leave the room. By the time the coastal fog finally lifted, self-pity from the aloneness shackled you anyway. A hermit in your hollow sanctuary, you begrudged the world going on without you, watching the weekend fade. Already you dread the weight of Monday, the forced smiles, and the inevitable small talk at work. How was your weekend? Did you do anything fun? Only to round off the day like any other, stopping at the liquor store for sips on the straightaway. Secretly, you wish for something to disrupt the sameness. But dare not dream because you don't want to be disappointed. Failing would look foolish. If you pick the Tower card from a tarot deck, a crumbling depiction of flames and upheaval, I know you'd think life was happening to you. This is not judgment. Your perspective is understandable. With the pressure of expectations heavy, every misstep seems to signal failure. Knowing now what I didn't know back then, I want to share something important. Ideas are not fixed. They can shift and grow. It's okay to dream, to let your mind imagine new possibilities. It's even okay to be vulnerable and allow yourself to express deep feelings. The dreams you fear most may set you free. And life is happening for you. When you look at your reflection in the mirror, you still see the girl walking home from the cheap motel at 3:30, anxious to come down enough to sleep before work. In the crease between your blonde eyebrows, you wear the stress of a winter morning on the bench, breaking from your shift for a cigarette. Your thumbs compose a text message, delete it, and start again. Dressed in that blue boho sweater and those tight black pants, you pull off the professional look well. No one would guess the nature of your secrets. Will you ever get the image of yourself from your 30th birthday out of your head? Tethered to the moment by a string, each second blurs like the lights on the tree, mirrored in the glass ornaments. You sit against the bricks of the hearth after Christmas dinner, circling the rim of a whiskey abyss, and scribble on Elton John performance onto your mental bucket list. Now or never. You charge 5 tickets for the night of your upcoming 30th birthday on your credit card. Never mind the logistics, finding a hotel in Vegas and arranging transportation. The real challenge was confronting the wreckage of your life. You'd turned down so many coffee invitations to stay in bed with Evan that friends eventually stopped asking. When someone leaned on you for support, you'd slur your opinions, unaware of their real need. Your memories vanished, but their struggles stayed with them until they stopped calling to confide in you altogether. Just as drugs aren't food, people you're sleeping with aren't friends. When everything in your life is built on lies, a different mask for each audience, you can't risk blending worlds for fear of being exposed. And so with disingenuous relationships burned and real ones pushed away, filling the 4 seats for the concert was impossible. At last, confirmation of what you'd fear all along, that you were undeserving and unlovable. Even after selling the tickets on StubHub, you didn't change your vacation schedule at work, as if you'd find something local to do instead, a consolation prize, an extended bender. The big day was spent alone. By nightfall, it was like the alcohol wore off, and the teeth of your desolation chewed you up and spit you out on the living room floor. Looking in the mirror, this is what you saw staring back at you. People would say, "Don't give up hope." But you have to give up to give in. There is no other way. Change is hard, and saving your life is brave. You wouldn't bother if you weren't desperate. In this regard, your shame becomes a blessing. Unfortunately, this won't give you immunity from desire. Days will come that bring you to your knees. You'll be running errands with the music up and windows down, rolling your right arm forward in a wave to the hip-hop beat. Urges reappear like ghosts. Hardships blanket your marriage, and communication scrapes like sandpaper. For a moment in the car, you'll entertain the fantasy of sitting alone in a cheap hotel, wearing that old black leather jacket. Your daydream is so visceral. Hand around a tumbler of whiskey. You even think you can smell its burn. Life continues to take you and shake you as another year rolls by. Your patience is fried, and your future is daunting. The summer air is still, and more than anything in the world, you wish you could feel the rush of your first high. Coupled with a dark, twisted pull to self-sabotage, the prospect of even half the high is a tempting promise. Tears fill your eyes, a grief like no other. And you don't drink, and you don't get high. You sit there amongst the contradictory feelings as they come and go. Eventually, the craving passes, leaving you in fearful respect of the addiction. Like never turning your back to the ocean, you learn to be vigilant. Thankfully, these days are rare, making the quiet ones all the more treasurable. Staying sober is hard work, and it transforms your self-image. Slow and steady, you'll endure the pains of growing up. Drumming the ink pen against the table to the tune of hold music, you'll set up payment plans, resolving the debts from neglected medical bills and student loans. For too long, the fear of failure kept you from even trying. But as you harness your creativity, you'll learn to sew and to garden, filling hours that were once lost to booze. These new pursuits will anchor you, bringing presence to moments you used to dread. And despite not having a college education, you'll go on to write a book. Listening, vocalizing your needs, and holding space for others' feelings while honoring your own, these are skills you'll grow into. You'll form friendships with women you respect, women who embody these qualities, and through trial and error, you'll start to incorporate them yourself. With time, you'll feel comfortable and confident in your exchanges, creating bonds that will uplift and sustain you. When your half-sister, 14 years your senior, has lost 15 pounds from the stress of witnessing her marriage unravel, she'll call you. You'll exchange photos of life in the garden with family, and aunts and uncles will come to your house for a home-cooked dinner. Seeing them there will rewrite years of guilt over arriving late or slipping away early from gatherings, if you showed up at all. And when your former roommate, Lindsay, falls sick and is hospitalized, of all the people in the world, her husband calls you to get her through and be a source of comfort. Discovering that old box of school assignments, your eye catches a paper in shaky third-grade cursive. The prompt asked, "Who do you think was a better president, and why?" Reading your answer is like looking back into a mirror of conviction you'd forgotten. With pure, unfiltered sincerity, you chose Lincoln, drawn to his anti-slavery stance and your early understanding of equality. Also, inside your biography of Elizabeth Blackwell, the first female doctor, the report echoes a quiet admiration for those who defied norms to make things better. In a world where injustice and tragedy still stir a visceral response within you, these small artifacts of your past will affirm that your beliefs and values have always been a part of you, even if they got buried along the way. Despite getting lost, grappling with your addictions, and at times feeling disconnected from the world around you, these mementos will remind you that your commitment to compassion and justice has been an anchor. As you cry over news articles or witness the wounds in society, you'll know these reactions aren't new. They're the truest reflection of yourself, and a testament to the person you've always been and continue to grow into. This is an important invitation to release the polarizing mindset that measures you against extremes. Even at your worst, you weren't bad, and at your best, you're only human, with growth in both your struggles and strengths. These reminders affirm that at your lowest, you were never lost, and at your highest, you're still vulnerably, authentically human. These amazing things are not compared to motherhood. Nothing compared to motherhood. You'll bring babies into the world and raise them gently with a backyard garden and black lab. Your daughter will hold ladybugs and put nasturtium leaves atop her blonde hair like a hat. Curls tickling your chin, your son will fall asleep on your shoulder every night. Day in and day out, you'll show up for them. And of all the substances, nothing will compare to the high of loving those little humans. I am so grateful you got your shit together. Still fighting, still learning, still loving. I'm grateful that you are me. Okay. I'm a little choked up. All right. It took me a second. I had to have one because all the feels there. So relatable in so many places. And it read so well, I didn't want to stop. Even when I had a couple of thoughts here and there. I think with vulnerably, I think it would have read fine if I was reading it silently. But reading it out loud, I wanted to say vulnerability, and I don't even think it fits. I think it's just that might be what we're more likely to see. We don't see vulnerably that often, and so that might be why I tripped over it. These reminders affirm that at your lowest, you were never lost, and at your highest, you're still vulnerable. I think vulnerable, but I get that you're saying vulnerably, authentically human. I don't know if I'd change it. I don't know. I might have just tripped over it because we don't see it that often, and that could have been just what it was. But it broke my rhythm, and so I noticed it. There were quite a few ands. Now, some of them were working for me. I feel like there might have been one or two here or there that kind of didn't. And I probably should have stopped myself as I was reading and addressed each thing. And I almost would even read through it again, looking and doing the talking part. But it was reading so beautifully that I just didn't want to break that rhythm. It's like I just wanted to, I wanted it to be, and I wanted you to be able to play it back and listen to it without interruption. And so I kind of, it's the end. I feel like you needed that, you needed to hear it all the way through without interruption. So now you've got that. Let me see where there was anything. There was very few, and the ands did start to stand out, but some of them I feel like worked. So I wouldn't change all of them. So the thing is, we got to figure out where. And then, am I in suggesting mode up here? Where am I? No. Okay. Oh gosh. That's not what I wanted. Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that if I started marking things up. Right here, we just needed, we don't need two of them. We needed another paragraph there. And then, let's see. I know you've got questions for me at the bottom, but you've also got things at the top. So first, I want to address what I do first. So starting sentences with and but. I don't know that I noticed the buts, but I did notice some ands. There's a but right there, but it read well. Okay, here's something for you. I read it through out loud. So as you're listening to it, first, I wanted you to get to enjoy hearing it all the way through without interruption. And second, were there ands that stood out to you when I was reading it out loud? So I'm kind of putting a little bit of the question back towards you. Sometimes when I play back a video and I hear something again and I'm able to just listen to it and not be critiquing or looking for error and just listening, it sounds different, and I kind of disagree with some of the things that I say sometimes. I'm like, it's like there's this little person and like this little entity inside my brain that filters for things, and I have to acknowledge them in order to get my read through. So when I play something back, sometimes I listen to it a second time and I'm like, that was fine. Just let it go. Shut up. But if I don't address whatever my brain throws up at me, sometimes it won't let me keep reading. So there's that. But here, I kept telling myself I really wanted to just keep the rhythm going so you could hear it all the way through. Now, when you listen back, you can listen for whether or not the ands and buts bothered you. There was a couple that stood out. I think the way that you used it here was in rhythm with your words. It's in rhythm with your words, with your voice, with your overall tone and cadence. So now I see what you're saying when you say to me that starting sentences with and or but this has come up before, but I noticed it's a bit heavy throughout this piece, but it conversationally matches my voice. So I kind of get what you're trying to say is exactly what I'm saying, just in a different way. And that is basically it's in sync with the cadence that you have, the rhythm and the voice and the tone for this piece. It would break it if you tried to rework it. I see that. And I mean, maybe not always, but in some cases. But so one of the things that I usually do, if you want to look at, if when listening to it play back, some of them bother you, they're actually super easy to fix. And sometimes they won't change the tone or the voice of your story, because all you do to decide is you reread it omitting that first word. Often your sentence doesn't need it. It's just something we say conversationally. So to give you an example, let me see if I got to go back far enough to pick up the rhythm of the story, and then I'll read on through, at least maybe down to a certain point, maybe this line or something. And I'll just leave that off and try to read it as the word perfection, so that I help myself not mess up, because sometimes I will if it's there. I can delete this comment. I'm just going to go over here. So depending, and I'll leave it up to you as to how you like it, and you get to hear it both ways. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm probably just going to delete the comment after that so that it doesn't confuse you, because basically I'm presenting it to you both ways for you to make the choice. In a cycle of self-consciousness, judging yourself against your perception of others, you imagine what they must think of you, caught in a torturous self-consumed critique. The narrative evolved over the years, but the message remained the same. You're not enough. Lose weight, hydrate skin, say something funny, heal my awkward anxiety. You'd nitpick. Maybe if you were perfect, then you'd be worthy. Perfection is an illusion, and life is messy. Somewhere along the way, you surrendered your destination for fear of failing to reach it. Then you found yourself lost. The only thing worse than being lost was being bored. There, in between the occupied moments, loneliness crept in. So see, I've read it both ways now, and you can kind of decide. Did it read just as well, still in sync, still in tone, still in rhythm, whatever you want to call it, still in your voice, just simply dropping the word but and moving perfection to be the first word? I honestly did not miss the but when I read it. I think it still sounded great, if not better. So simple fix there. And you can go through and you can do that with all of them and decide which ones you want to keep. You get to hear it both ways. That's one option. So this is actually a super simple thing for you to kind of figure out. There will be a couple that you probably want to keep, and it might be in the way that you use them. This is going to be another one, I bet you anything. If you take this out and you just go straight into dare, I bet you it sounds great. How was your weekend? Did you do anything fun? Only to round off the day like any other, stopping at the liquor store for sips on the straightaway. Secretly, you wish for something to disrupt the sameness. Dare not dream because you don't want to be disappointed. Failing would look foolish. Okay. So, in this case, but dare not dream because you don't want to be disappointed is telling you, but don't not dream. And if I omit the but, it says dare not dream. So like, does it have a different meaning? See, so that's one way to read it and figure out if it's going to be okay or not. If it changes the meaning of your sentence by omitting the word, then you need the word. This is the beauty of a video. We get to hear it both ways. We get to decide if it changes the meaning of the sentence, and we don't want to do that. So in this case, you would keep it. In the decision's kind of made for you. Does that help? And so by having examples, when we share our work with others and we read it out loud and we look at it together, and then I have a little musing, a little conversation explanation, and we get down to the bottom of it, I get excited because now we've had an example of we don't want to change the meaning of a sentence, so we would leave the word there, and the decision's kind of made for you. Okay, that makes me happy. Okay, let's see if we have. Okay, so here's another and. Let's see what happens if we omit the and. It's okay to dream, to let your mind imagine new possibilities. It's even okay to be vulnerable and allow yourself to express deep feelings. The dreams you fear most may set you free. Life is happening for you. When you look at your reflection in the mirror, you'll still see the girl walking home from the cheap motel at 3:30. Okay, so I kind of like the and life rather than the without it, because it's like it just adds to the tone of it, I think. So I might, if I was me, I'd probably keep that one. We could do a couple more and then I'll go on to your next question, because I think you've got the tools from what I'm saying to help make the decision. It is good to screen and look at it and give it the thought to make the decision on which ones to keep, because you don't want to have too many. I do feel like we had quite a few. Some of them were working for me, like I said, and some of them I think I'd probably let go, and the best way to do it is to test it this way. Here's another one. Just as drugs aren't food, people you're sleeping with aren't friends. When everything in your life is built on lies, a different mask for each audience, you can't risk blending worlds for fear of being exposed. So, with disingenuous relationships burned and real ones pushed away, filling the 4 seats for the concert was impossible. At last, confirmation of what you feared all along, that you were undeserving and unlovable. So with this particular sentence, it worked for me with starting with so, and we don't start very many sentences with so. Grammarly might complain about it. We could even test it out and see. I bet it might be like, don't start sentences with so. I don't know. I feel like that's something I might do now. That might be a thing I do now. I didn't mean to put that one in there. Let's see what it does. Let's see what happens. It's not complaining. It doesn't mean it won't. Let me take out that comma. It might be fine. So anyway, it's something to observe. I started it with so. We don't do that very often, so it's okay. It worked for me. It's interesting because that particular sentence starts with and, so, and with, which we don't usually start sentences, I think, very many sentences with those words. So we could even go further in and omit and so and start with and see what happens. Or you could omit and so and with and start with disingenuous relationships burned and real ones pushed away. We could try that, and it might even be the best recommendation of what to do. So let's do that. Just as drugs aren't food, people you're sleeping with aren't friends. When everything in your life is built on lies, a different mask for each audience, you can't risk blending worlds for fear of being exposed. Disingenuous relationships burned and real ones pushed away, filling the 4 seats for the concert was impossible. At last, confirmation of what you'd feared all along, that you were undeserving and unlovable. I like that one. I really do. I kind of think that's one I would go with. Start with that nice, big, beautiful word right there. I think that one's good. I would omit those other 3. And here is another but. We have to go back a bit to get our tone. The big day was spent alone. By nightfall, it was like the alcohol wore off and the teeth of your desolation chewed you up and spit you out on the living room floor. Looking in the mirror, this was what you saw staring back at you. People would say, don't give up hope. But you have to have the but on that one. You have to give up to give in. So no, I'd keep that one. Okay. I had to go answer a call, and I am back, and I lost my spot. I'm sorry. Okay, I know we were talking about and but. Tears fill your eyes at grief like no other, and you don't drink, and you don't get high. I'd leave that one, I think. It does stand out because you've got and you don't, but the way you used it, I think works. I think I've given you enough tools to know what to do there. I would do a search for the words, and I would highlight them so that you can find them quickly and easy. You can see how many you had, and then go to each one, go a couple lines above it, read it out loud, see if you like how it sounds without it. See, here's one, but as you. Okay, so I'm inclined to look at harness. Drumming the ink pen against the table to the tune of hold music, you'll set up payment plans, resolving the debts from neglected medical bills and student loans. For too long, the fear of failure kept you from even trying. And in this case, I think you need it, because I'm stopping and I'm starting with harness, and it's like you need to tell yourself, but you harness your creativity. You'll learn to sow and to garden. Whereas if you omit it, you have harness your creativity. But that's like telling yourself to do it, but you've already done it. So you need the word but. And so that's one of the things that'll work about omitting it, reading without it, and you'll be able to decide line by line for each line that this concern applies to whether or not to keep it. And don't forget, when you look to the word but, look to the word beside it, and then if it's a connecting word, look again. And then you could start with, instead of but, you can also say instead. All right, so let's try that for a second. Drumming the ink pen against the table to the tune of hold music, you'll set up payment plans, resolving the debts from neglected medical bills and student loans. For too long, the fear of failure kept you from even trying. Instead, you harness your creativity. You'll learn to sew and to garden. Now, see, I don't think that's working when I read it out loud because it changes the meaning of the sentence. It doesn't have the same clarity. So there's things to do to help you make the decision, and hopefully I've given you the tools for you to know what to do to each one, so you know whether or not to change it or keep it. So you've got a couple different things to look for there. I think that with this one, very quickly, you probably could go straight here to despite. But as you harness your creativity, you'll learn to sew and to garden, filling hours that were once lost to booze. These new pursuits will anchor you, bring presence to moments you used to dread. Despite not having a college education, you'll go on to write a book. Listening, vocalizing your needs. See, I think that one's better. Okay, I would drop that one, and I would keep this one, and I'd drop that one. So there you go. You've got, I know that, I know you've got what you need to make these decisions. I know you do. All right, so let me go on. What was the other question? I worried there is too much you, yourself, and you'll. I did not, there is probably a lot of them, but in the flow of it, the overall flow of it, and when you listen back to it, did they bother you? Did they distract you? Did they detract you from the story, from the letter? I was engrossed in the letter. I was right there, engrossed. I got the feels. I had the whole bit. I thought it was beautiful. I like how you were talking to yourself, honestly. Sometimes we could be our own worst critic, but we need to be our own best cheerleader too, right? Okay. I worry there is too much you, yourself, and you'll. It didn't distract me from it. I was engrossed. Honestly, I noticed the ands and the buts more than I noticed you and you'll and that. Yeah. So when you play it back and you listen to it straight through, did any of them distract you? And if any of them did, go back to that part and look at that specific one. That'll help you narrow down which one to give your attention to. Let's see what else we've got. Do you have a note on why you highlighted these two ends, or is it because you have two of them in the same paragraph? I'm betting. Let's see. I'm going to scroll through and see if there's any more of. All right, so let's look at the two that you have there. I'm going to go a little bit above it, and I'm going to read on down past it to see if there's anything that flags for me when I read them. Listening, vocalizing your needs, and holding space for others' feelings while honoring your own. These are skills you'll grow into. You'll form friendships with women you respect, women who embody these qualities, and through trial and error, you'll start to incorporate them yourself. With time, you'll feel comfortable and confident in your exchanges, creating bonds that uplift and sustain you. When your half-sister, 14 years your senior, has lost 15 pounds from the stress of witnessing her marriage unravel, she'll call you. You'll exchange photos of life in the garden with family, and aunts and uncles will come to your house for a home-cooked dinner. Seeing them there will rewrite years of guilt over arriving late or slipping away from early gatherings, if you showed up at all. And when your former roommate, Lindsay, falls sick and is hospitalized, of all the people in the world, her husband calls you to get her through and be a source of comfort. It did not distract me. I don't think it distracted me the first time either. If they bother you, or if you're worried about them, or if they stand out to you when I was reading, then go ahead and give your attention to it. If there's some part of the read that stood out to you, then go back and give your attention to that and ask yourself why that specific part bothered you and what you can do about it. I'm fine with the first win always. Okay. So I'm usually fine with the first use of the word. Oh, my folder blew open and is sending papers flying across my office because I like to have my windows open. Okay, seeing them there will rewrite years of guilt over arriving late or slipping away early from gatherings, if you showed up at all. No, I think you need these wins, honestly. Now, you do have an and there, so you could look at that. And then I know that if you start that sentence with when, you've started two sentences when, and I wouldn't do that. And then I like how you've got it, so I don't know. You could even omit this one perhaps and start with your. Maybe. Your half-sister, 14 years your senior, loses 15 pounds from the stress of her witnessing her marriage unravel. She'll call you. I don't know. I kind of like this one. I don't know if I'd worry about this. I don't know if I would. I think if it sounded good and I didn't notice it and I don't think I'd touch this one. What do you guys think? I don't think I would. I would anywhere that I kind of tripped up a little bit, I might give attention to that, to just kind of look closer at it and ask yourself why that is. But overall, I think it read really well. I had the feels. I had to pause and get the lump out of my throat so I could talk further. I had to keep trying to take a breath or distract my brain while I was reading so that I didn't get all caught up and unable to read clearly, because I have done that. I did that to a read that I did for Marion, Avian Luther, and I just got really choked up and it was very difficult to read. But she deserved it. Our words deserve to be heard, especially when they're powerful and meaningful and resonate. So that's important. That's a goal hit. All right, let me see what your next question is. I have been winding down for chapters 13 through 16. Janice, Connor, you, the reader, and now me. Does this ending feel satisfying, or was one of those more impactful that I should rearrange? Let's see. Criteria for a memoir includes the author's perspective on experiences or themes in a focused time. A memoir should show growth and be vulnerable, relatable, and articulate something about being human that resonates with readers. Did this check those boxes for me? Okay. So as I've been reading, I've kind of been pointing out where you've accomplished these things along the way. And so thankfully I've been doing that, because I can say in my mind, yeah, I remember telling you that, I'm like just now before I even read this question, I had a lump in my throat at the end. Okay. I had the feels. All right. And every time that I read one of your letters and had the feels, whether it be angry or a lump in my throat or, whatever it is, if it was the feeling you were going for, I have told you what I've felt as I've read. So you will know if you accomplished the goal you set out for. I even remember laughing at one part. Okay. So a memoir should show growth. Let's talk about that one next. Is it vulnerable? Yeah. I've got a trigger warning on your memoir there. So I think, yes, you had to be vulnerable and revealing these things. Is it relatable? Yeah, I've been telling you a lot everywhere that it's been relatable as we've gone along. So I know that we've done that. Has it articulated something about being human that resonates with readers? Yes, especially anybody who's been through similar circumstances. I wasn't so deep into drugs, but I am probably lucky to be alive for the volume of alcohol that I consumed based on my body weight and size in comparison to the people I was drinking with, who I would drink under the table that were bigger than me. Sometimes I wonder if my health problems now, even though I haven't drank in years, because I can't drink anymore. Even if I wanted to, I can't. But I wonder if all the drinking I did then is what's wrong with me now. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. But anyway, Is it relatable? Is it realistic? Yeah, first of all, it was your experience. Second, there's moments throughout this where I have been like, oh my gosh, I'm so there. All the mama moments, some of the drinking moments, some of it's like the whole escapism of the first half where we're just like not wanting to deal with our crap. And then eventually you kind of have to, if you're going to do anything with your life other than trying to escape. That's not to say that sometimes we don't need a break, because we do. We probably need smaller, frequent breaks and the occasional, big trip. But we have to make time for ourselves, and we have to find healing in other ways. And you talk about that too when you talk about gardening. And did you say that you've got flowers growing here? Because you're talking about gardening and nasturtium. I love the line about with your daughter's hair and the flowers. It's just beautiful. And let's see. You point out you're reflecting on your own light and dark moments, and they're very realistic. It's very human and very earthy and relatable. And your writing is beautiful. So let's see. What is your next question? Did this check those boxes? We have vulnerable. We have relatable. You have articulated something about being human that, people can relate to. For a while, I was worried about whether or not you were going to show the growth, if you were just going to go from where you were to where you are. But I managed to get the growth in the last couple chapters that you mentioned up here. Honestly, even the chapter where I think there was was it Marcia that was almost your therapist, or like a therapist for a moment, and it just didn't. I know Janice was almost not your sponsor, and then it's like it was meant to be, as you ended up coming back to her, or you tried someone different, it didn't work out, and Janice was where it was meant to be all along, and you kind of noticed her from the very beginning, and it's just because that's the person that you were meant to have and to work with. And so you found yourself where you were meant to be. So I kind of started to see growth, especially when you had Janice for a sponsor. And then even your marriage, if it's not perfect, it's still steps in the right direction. You're making the right choices to you're choosing to be responsible. So it's demonstrated. When I'm also remembering the two people that were, I think it was around around the time of the hold. I'm remembering there was two people that I wanted to know more about that spoke and kind of, they had resonated with you. I think it was two men. I feel like it was like a motorcycle dude. I forgot their names, but I remember them standing out to you, and I kind of was curious about them. I kind of wanted a little bit more about what it was that they said, and maybe if I went back and read it again, I would have that, but I remember wondering about them. I mean, obviously something they said really stuck with you, and I feel like you might have talked to a little bit about them a little more later on, or in the next chapter. I feel like maybe I got that. It's been a few chapters, and I'm reading for about 5 different people, but I remember that being a pivotal moment for you. Something they said resonated with you, and you began to decide to make a change. And then we start the healing part of the story. So I hope all of those musings are helpful. Let's see. Specific to this chapter, is there anywhere you would elaborate on or trim out? Did it tell you new things while still supporting supporting the same things and offering closure, or did it feel too redundant of the last few chapters? Actually, no. I kind of felt like when I was reading it, like you were looking back at yourself and talking to that person who you were, and then kind of summarizing your own journey, like where you were telling yourself where you were going to be. Like you get to look back and tell that person, hey, this hard work, this sacrifice, this denying of this constant beast that lingers deep within us, and it raises its head, especially when we're stressed. It's our instinct to go to flee from it. If some people, but not everyone, obviously, but it could be an impulse, I guess. so you kind of, you reviewed all of that, and then you got to tell yourself, hey, on the other side of that struggle, you're going to be here, and you're going to have this beautiful relationship with your children, and you're going to you're going to find comfort, you're going to find friends, you're going to find all the things that you were denying yourself, even if you didn't even realize you were denying yourself. It's all going to be there for you, and so you're more fulfilled, and you're fulfilled in other ways that are healthier and better for you, and that also spread joy to those around you. So it's that ripple effect where we were rippling down one way that was unhealthy for everyone, and then we make a change and we're able to ripple down with all the positive things that can affect other people in a good way, and we get to feel proud of ourselves. And so I kind of got that from reading this. Let's see. I think I'm answering all your questions. And the new thing that was in here was like, apparently you were going to gift, was it a birthday? Let's see, or the event. You decided to go to a concert, and then you couldn't find anybody to go with you that was a real person that you wanted to be there with. And, you found yourself alone. And so actually I like this one a lot. This one with the tickets and the concert, because it's kind of a reality moment where you're like, I'm alone. Like, I'm for real alone. I can't find anybody to go do this thing with me. I found this particular chapter very relatable for me right now and today. And I thought when I started reading, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm paralleling so many of these things in different ways, but that are similar. So even you talked about being a hermit in your sanctuary, where I'm an introvert. So I fake it really well. But then when I'll leave a crowded event or a bustling activity, I'll be absolutely drained afterwards. And people will tell me they can't tell. But I get being withdrawing and kind of people going away because you didn't call them back. It's a different reason. It's not because, I'm drinking or whatever, or doing anything I shouldn't be doing. It's just I'm pulling back, and then people are going to get tired of trying to call me because I'm not answering, but I just don't want to talk. So it's a little bit different, but at the same time, I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, is that like a subconscious mention? Are these words reaching me at this moment? Because I need to call this person back. I really do. And so I found it extremely relatable. I have enjoyed your memoir. Honestly, I have enjoyed your memoir more than I thought I would. I didn't know really what to expect. Because I don't typically read memoirs. I think I've read, honestly, like 2 memoirs that I can think of. One was like Britney Spears' memoir, and my interest in that was not because she's a celebrity, but because of just the very obvious tragedy surrounding her. I mean, it's just the whole thing. And then I wasn't even really a fan, and I was still like, what have they done to this woman? So that was kind of my interest in that memoir and why I was interested in it. I was like, for this, she's obviously a celebrity, but at the same time, I kind of try not to give celebrities too much attention. I don't feel like that's healthy for me. Okay. So it was a long time before I decided to read it. And at the same time, all that happened to her was what brought me to ultimately pick it up. And I'm telling you this because if you're wondering, what is the thought process of someone who doesn't read a memoir? I don't usually read memoirs. Some people love memoirs, and that's all they read. I mean, it's like any other genre. And it'd be wonderful if you could find access to them and ask them, what is it that draws them to read a memoir? Because you'll know. There may be people looking specifically for a memoir about these very topics, and they'll find that super relatable, and like I'm able to relate in some of these ways a little bit differently, but at the same time as I'm reading it, I'm having my own right now, today. I can relate to this. Even though it's not for the same motivation, I can relate to these same feelings, these same sensations. And that's the human aspect of it. And then the other memoir I read was, I think, J.C. Dugard. And that was, she was a girl that got abducted when she was like 11, and she was walking to the bus stop and she got abducted and was absolutely, completely abused. And the, and I remember hearing about it on the news when I was a kid. And so when I found out she had a biography, I was like, what happened to her? How did they miss that? How did she survive that? And so that's how I picked up that memoir and was like, what in the world? And it's awful. But at the same time, that's the other memoir I read, and that is why I picked it up and read it. So, hope all of those musings answer your questions. If I didn't answer one, or if you have more, send me a message. Don't hesitate to do that, and I will do my best to answer them for you. Thank you for sharing your memoir with me and trusting me with your words. Guys, I hope you have enjoyed following us, and I think I have a couple more things if you need me. Like, I feel like there might be some more. If you wanted me to look at something, I'm happy to look up for you. And I hope that we talk soon. Guys, I'll see you next time on Mystery Red Reads.